All of that. Last week, the Trump administration attempted to use the Supreme Court to strip away birthright citizenship, meaning that folks in this country whose parents may or may not have been born on this soil and may or may not have allegiance, we'll get into what that means in a second, to this country, would no longer automatically be United States citizens, something that's been in the, not the document that I uplift for liberatory struggle, but it is sort of part of what they meant in the Constitution. Joining us to discuss is Nana Gyamfi, Executive Director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, or BAJI. Good morning, beautiful.
Good morning, my love. How are you?
I'm
In
better
spite of it
now
all.
looking at your face. All things considered, I got comrades and homies like you, so it can't be too bad. Um, so last week, sis, marked actually one of the first times ever that a sitting president went to go witness arguments before a Supreme Court. This, of course, is after he called the judges stupid and a disgrace to their families when they rejected his worldwide tariffs. But this time, he was there to watch, and one would guess, given his persona, attempt to bully or intimidate the court into going along with his administration's plan to strip away birthright citizenships. While the courts, and you and I have, and will, if we have time, talk about it again today, have rubber stamped a lot of his nonsense, right? We've been wondering, like, is the Supreme Court actually still a tool for justice or even law in this country? That didn't so much happen last week, though they did give him a little bit of an out. Anyway, central to the arguments on both sides, the ACLU as well as the Trump administration, was this idea of the domicile requirement. What is that? What does that mean?
So, first of all, it was foolishness. So let's start there. It's an argument of foolishness. So, the 14th Amendment, first of all, doesn't say anything about domicile. Okay. What they were trying to focus on, there's a lot of things that the government has thrown up in their effort to try to change not just the way that citizenship, birthright citizenship operates, but change how we think about who belongs. Okay. So, what they were trying to do really is to push back against this old idea that you have heard of, many of the folks that are listening have heard of for decades now, which is the anchor baby, which, by the way, is Trump. But let's put that to the side. Okay. But is the anchor baby the person like me in their mind, whose parents came from somewhere else, who come into this country, in my parents' case, as students, and then have a child or children in the country. And there's this idea that people are doing this purposefully. This is like a cheat. They're cheating to get these great benefits of the United States, as opposed to they're coming here to live and migrate like everyone else can, as is a human right. And so the issue that the government, or the regime, as I like to call it, wants to put forward is that if you are not deciding that this is where you're living and all of the things they attach to that, that you're worthy, that you're loyal, and that you're good, right? If you're not in that and just doing all of that and deciding that this is the country you're going to live in for the rest of your life, then you should not have, or your child should not have the opportunity in their mind to be an American citizen, something that they describe as priceless and a precious gift, right? The citizenship of the US above all others. And so they went down this rabbit hole about domicile when in fact that's not what the 14th Amendment says. The 14th Amendment says that if you are born in this country, that you are a citizen. It has very few exceptions that have been found. For example, if you're a child of an ambassador, because just like your embassy is still your country, it's sort of your country still follows you wherever you go. That's why they just can't arrest ambassadors left and right. But and Native Americans, right? They have a specific exception around them because they have a specific relationship with those sovereign nations. But what they wanted to do really is to push back against this idea that you get to be a citizen just because you are born here when you are not really, a white person.
Not the last bit of pivot there. Um, uh, I looked this up and I want to read this because and it's part of the argument that came up. So for my people who don't know what the 14th Amendment is, and don't feel bad because I had to look it up. Ratified in 1868 following the Civil War, the 14th Amendment is a cornerstone of the U.S. Constitution that granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States including formerly enslaved people, and guaranteed equal protection and due process under the law, prohibiting states from restricting basic rights. I want to sit on that, including formerly enslaved people, because we were
Correct.
not considered citizens, correct? We were property, and our children were property, not people, yes?
Yes, but and also it actually extended to free citizens and so free Black people. And I think that's an important point to make, alt right, because the yes, formerly enslaved people were treated as chattel and counted as chattel, and chattel, which are like oxen and cows, are not considered to be people, therefore not able to be citizens. But the inability to be a citizen even applied to people who were free, right? And so the rule that Dred Scott laid out, that the Supreme Court laid out in Dred Scott, that a Black person had no rights that a white person need respect, it's rooted in this notion that Black people who at that time were not African American, but actually were Africans, right, who had been ripped from their homeland for hundreds of years, that those people could not be citizens. And the 14th Amendment came in to say, yes, they can. They absolutely can. And by the fact that they have been born here, they automatically are. So if you were African that was trafficked into the country, because you know that after enslavement, people were still brought into the country, right, against the so called law, then this may not apply to you. But if you were someone who was here, born here at the time that amendment was ratified and a Black person, then it did apply to you. And it's one of the Reconstruction Amendments. It's actually one of the ways that the rest of us are set free. We are set free by these amendments that were ratified based on the struggle, the blood, the sacrifice of these people who later would be described as Black American, African American, right? Who at that time were free or enslaved Black people.
Nana, help me be smarter. See, if y'all are smart, you will get yourself some friends that are smarter than you because they help you do better and be better. So as you were talking, right, my brain went, wasn't this the thing called the Three-Fifths Compromise? And didn't that mean that we was people so that the South could win in Congress? So I looked that up while you was talking, and that happened in 1787. But the 14th Amendment is 18, what I just say, y'all, was 1868. Help me, please.
Yes, 1868. Yes. So the Constitution that we see that we are looking at now is obviously a Constitution that has changed over time. So there was a Constitution that had Black people as three-fifths of a person for the purposes of census and representation. This is how, when we say the law is fake, this is what we mean, says the 30-year movement attorney, right? When I say the law is fake, when we say the law is fake, this is what we mean. So they literally said, you're not people for the purposes of your human rights. You're not people for the purposes of whatever rights are afforded to people in this country. But when it comes to counting on the census, when it comes to, therefore, what representation is going to look like and what resources are going to look like that you're not even going to be able to benefit from, we're going to count you. Where does that also happen in modern day? People counted in prisons, people counted in detention prisons, right? They are counted in the county that they are held in, even though they are denied rights under the 13th Amendment.
That was me connecting the dots. For those you can't see, I'm holding up a piece of paper that's got two dots in a line. And as Nana was talking, I was like, oh, I have a sketch pad right here. Let me connect the dots to today, right? And why this is so important. I mean, a lot of reasons, but to today and why I say a lot in the show, we cannot adequately organize in the present if we do not understand the past, because there's a direct correlation. And these people have been up to the same shenanigans forever. So there was an argument that came up, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who I thought was an interesting person to make that argument. Was she asked if these are, I'm paraphrasing, these are not the words of the justice. She would not talk like this. But basically, she said, would newly kidnapped slaves who were pregnant have felt allegiance to this country and want to stay, and therefore not should have benefited from 1868?
Here's the thing that's so interesting. And, part of the interesting part about it is that this woman not have Haitian children that she kidnapped and brought into this country. But let us not go there. Let
That's
me
why
leave
I
that
said it was an
alone.
interesting person to make the argument.
So let me leave that alone because I'm sure she don't want them to rip the citizenship away from her kids. But I'll leave that to the side. Here's what's so interesting about the allegiance argument. Again, an argument of foolishness that should long ago have been stamped out. It's part of what Justice, Clarence T brought up. It's like, oh, well, these people who were formerly enslaved, they just felt such an allegiance to this country, and that how do you know this? Why? Why do you think that people who were beaten and tortured, the reason that they, are in this country and you should be citizens is not because they built this country. It's not because they were born in this country, that they've been in this country for hundreds of years, but because they swear allegiance to this country and they have such loyalty. It's a really dangerous argument, actually, right? Because allegiance, it's not, we're talking about a baby. So, first of all, let's roll it back. They kept focusing on the allegiance of the person who is the adult, the person who is pregnant, right? And it's not lost on me and should not be lost on anyone that this birthright citizenship they're talking about depends upon the documented status of the mother, just as slavery in this country depended upon the status of the mother. That's not lost on me. But the idea that you look at the mother, poor women, just blame for everything, and you decide that the mother's allegiance, the mother's so-called criminality, right, or not doing things in their mind the right way, which we know is a myth, but I'm just roll with me. The mother's worthiness, that now determines what should happen to the child. A baby doesn't have allegiance. A baby has allegiance to eating and to sleeping and to, all the other functions of the body and to screaming at the top of their lungs and keeping us up all night. That is the allegiance of the baby. The baby doesn't have an allegiance to a country, nor should it, right? And one point that I think Cecilia Wang made, which was a great point, the legal director of ACLU, brilliant woman out of Berkeley, went to school with my sister, undergrad there. One point that she made that was brilliant was that even the Japanese folks who were falsely accused of being enemies and violently interred when they had children in those concentration camps, those children were assumed and were designated as American citizens. So if you're saying that someone is an enemy of the state and they give birth in the United States in a concentration camp and that person's child is a birthright citizen, what are we sitting up here talking about the pregnant enslaved woman who gives birth in 1868? Right. That doesn't make any kind of sense. It's already been established. This is all ways that they want to confuse and also to question the allegiance. All of this was meant to question worthiness, question allegiance, question goodness, right, versus criminality, not just of immigrants, but of African Americans. And I'm hoping that people can make that connection.
You bring up sort of not sort of, you bring up a valid point and something I do want to touch on is that the arguments inside of the Supreme Court, really with the exception of Justice Ketanji, focused on the past, right? Using the Constitution to have this very real conversation about today, right now, leaving out really to talk about practical impacts on people right now. And so, because that is what you are rooted in every single day, dealing with the real world impacts of this administration's attack on immigrants, particularly Black immigrants, I want to give you an opportunity now so say this happens, right? Because we're not done. I guess I should have you talk about what happened at how that hearing closed, but we'll do that in a second. We're not done with this conversation. Let's say the Trump administration wins. What does that mean for our people?
So what that means for our people, in the immediate, is that you're going to have people who had children that were born after this executive order came out, who were undocumented at the time, whose the father or the other parent is not a U.S. citizen. Because if the other parent's a U.S. citizen, they're cool. The other parent is not a U.S. citizen. They could be a green card holder. They could be a student with a valid visa, whatever their situation is. what it's going to mean for those children is that now they are at minimal stateless, right? Because what happens to African Americans if they take birthright citizenship away? You got millions of stateless people. And so it won't be to the same scale initially. Initially, it will be these individuals who, unless they come from a country where your mother's citizenship determines your citizenship, they literally could be a people that have no state, that have no country. And then how are they going to file paperwork? What are they going to do at that point? We are going to see that mothers or people who are giving birth are not going to go to the hospital. There's going to be issues with respect to, particularly as you look at Black folks with Black immigrant mothers and their maternal health, Black babies, immigrant babies, or babies born of immigrant mothers and their maternal health, right? I mean, their infant health. So we're going to see those concerns. We're going to see the concerns because it's going to expand. When you heard what they said in the court, Cecilia Wang kept saying, well, if it applies to these babies, it would apply to all immigrants. And I was thinking, girl, don't you know that's what they wanted to do? They wanted to apply to all immigrants, which includes me, which includes my family, which includes so many of the folks that we don't even know are immigrant rooted because they're not waving flags, right? That are really critical and important in our communities, our neighbors, our friends, etc. And then we'll all be in a position that, you too, for $10,000, for $20,000, for $200,000 can apply to be a citizen of the United States. It will be citizenship for sale, which it already is. And of course, this regime has already been moving towards that. But so if you can't afford it, if you're not part of the Epstein class, then basically you're not going to be able to afford to be a citizen in this country. And once we start going down that slippery slope, we now get to the point where we're asking African Americans, Black Americans, can you prove that your people were here before 1868? And by the way, we, the government, get to decide what proof is. There are Black people right now that are African American that can't get a real ID, okay? Because they don't have what the government wants. Now, if you can't get a real ID using documents you would had when you were a living person, I don't understand why people think they're going to trace themselves back to the government's satisfaction to 1864. It will not be your Bible. It will not be your stories. It will not be whatever you get from the Church of the Latter-day Saints records. It will not be it's going to be very difficult. And so this impacts the baby that was born then, right after this order came out, if this goes through, but it also impacts folks who are not even thinking about what this could do to them that are Black folks living all over this country.
You said it it applies to all immigrants. Does it apply to white South Africans too? Is that what she meant? It'll apply to all immigrants and white people?
Yeah, I mean, for the immediate, it would just apply to their babies that were born after this order, right? But the slippery slope is very easy for them to go down, particularly since they go down their slope by executive order, looking for the Supreme Court to ratify it. If Supreme Court were to go ahead and agree that, yes, the people would need to be able to prove their worthiness. They need to be able to prove their loyalty. They can't have a criminal background, quote unquote, or have any acts of criminality. And they start issuing executive order after executive orders. We're talking about a fool that will issue 50 executive orders in a day. One of those executive orders is going to put Black people who are Black American on that same measuring stick, and that will be a problem.
Nana, I got to get to my next segment here in a minute, but I do want to give you a second to update us on the Break the Machine campaign.
Yes, break the ice machine. We are pushing to break the ice machine. We know that these invasions of the body snatchers, i.e., ICBP, the police, federal agents, and of course the mass mercenaries continue. And we know that when they do these invasions, they don't just beam me up, Scotty, that they stay somewhere. And where they stay are these hotels. Hilton has 1,000 hotels across the country. And in all of these places where the invasions have happened, the Hilton Hotel has been a major, chain in supporting them, doubled down on supporting them, actually got rid of at least one franchise that refused to host the Body Snatchers and openly indicated that was against their values. And their CEO and their company is a supporter of this regime in so many ways. And so we're asking people to boycott Hilton. You can go to We Make Them Stop.org. We make them stop.org, and you can find more information on Break the Ice Machine, more information on Stop Taking Our People, which is STOP for short, which is a framework for which we think folks should use to analyze what is going on now. And thank you so very much, Kat, for letting me talk about that, because that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to break this ice machine.
It's so important. My boo was so sad because he had been collecting them Hilton honors points, and that's how he
Me
be
too.
taking
It
us
was
for
sad.
our weekends. He like, but I got points, baby. I said, no, we don't have no more points. All right, sis, I gotta move on. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sending you so much love and care.
Thank you. Sending it back. Thank you so much. Bye
We
bye.
was Bye, honey. We were speaking to Nana Gyamfi, Executive Director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, or BAJI. We will continue to keep you updated as the Supreme Court continues its conversation about birthright citizenship. That takes us to 8:32 in the morning. Here on Law and Disorder, I am your host, Kat Brooks. Yesterday marked the 58th anniversary of the murder of little Bobby Hutton, the first and youngest person to join the Black Panther Party. He was murdered by the Oakland Police Department. I'm going to say that one more again. He was murdered by the Oakland Police Department. I think we leave that piece of the conversation out. For those of you who ain't know, the park on Adeline and 18th here in Oakland, some of you refer to as the Infirmary Park, is actually Little Bobby Hutton Park. Joining us to discuss the legacy of Little Bobby, the 60th year of the Black Panther Party, and so much more, as we always get so much when he is on the air, is Chairman Fred Hampton, Jr., a Chicago-based community organizer and activist. He's the president and chairman of the Prisoners of Conscience Committee and the Black Panther Party Cubs. He is the son of Black Panther Party leader Chairman Fred Hampton. He is also my brother and comrade. Good morning.
Good morning to you as well. My sister, it's always an honor to be online with you.
This is the only time I get to see you now.
Hey, I'm planning on pulling up on y'all real soon.
A little birdie told me that might be happening, so I'll be
Yes.
looking forward to that. Chairman, I'm wondering if you would walk us through April 6th, 1968.
Hmm. I think if I can even attempt to put in the context even that climate, that time,
Yes.
because a lot of I've talked to a lot of people. In fact, we had an event last night, and even some, unbeknownst to me, some people they were under the impression that they even had tunnel vision. They was like, we thought this was just in Chicago. We thought this was just in different locations, on local locations. The Black Panther Party grew to be an international organization, and it was subsequently targeted by the infamous COINTELPRO, even though it was acknowledged in April of 1960. It was intensified with the former director of FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, and has said that the Black Panther Party represented the number one threat to internal security since since the Civil War. And though later on we still find out more information about the targeting of this organization, but even early on, we have to be very clear that in particular the Black community, a lot of the dynamics are not acknowledged with our people. Whether we talking about the Holocaust, whether we talking about the attacks, whether we talking about assassinations. And though little Bobby Hutton, one of the initial members of the an initial member of the Black Panther Party, who with the rank of treasurer, 17 years old, 2 days after Dr. King was assassinated, and I like to stress that term, Dr. King was assassinated April 4th, 1968. And this is a time, it was a revolutionary period, revolutionary climate. The Black Panther Party had started October 15, 1966 in Oakland, California. And again, Lil Bobby Hill was one of those initial recruits, and many people may have, become familiarized with him with that mobilization. They, in many ways, put the Black Panther Party on the national, if not an international map. The May 2nd, 1967 mobilization to the state capital, Sacramento, in which Minister UEP Newton had authored the executive mandate number one, and basically challenging what technically was referred to as the Mulford Act, and Senator Mulford was really calling for the disarmament of the black community in particular. But in layman's terms, people referenced it as the Panther Bill, because as we see historically, anytime there's an enforcement about disarming the black community in particular, it can be tied to some dynamic, whether we talking about the Emancipation Proclamation, whether we talking about any dynamic, but that's particular to the black community. And as Minister U.E.P. Newton had stated that we must even politicize the gun. And this was Lil Bobby Hutton was a factor, as they say, as the term they say in the streets a lot of times, a factor, a force to be reckoned with. And his again, his initial organizing and the government recognize, as we talk about even dynamics about many cases they see our potential before we see our own potential. You look at case examples as Chairman Fred's FBI file starting around 14, 15 years old. Long-held political prisoner Mumia Abu Jamal, who's dead in for Philadelphia branch of the Black Panther Party. And and we still are finding out more information. But with the climate, April 6, 1968, 2 days after Dr. King was assassinated in Oakland, California, historical stomping ground of Oakland, California. It was a case with the then Minister of Information, Eldridge Cleaver, and mind you, Minister U.E.P. was in prison. And I talk about the party to any dynamic. I tend to put many things in context. Minister U.E.P. was held captive. He was a political prisoner at that time, and the climb was intense. The Free UE campaign was full throttle. And then when I can't remember, it was 12 or 14 individuals. The Oakland police tracking them down, and they had them in a home, barricading the house, and then Lil Bobby Hutton and also Minister Cleaver. And when Lil Bobby had, when it came out, he was as I say, I almost say shot, assassinated. And again, this was April 6, 1968. I believe Minister Information Eldridge Cleaver was wounded, and was later locked. He was locked, subsequently locked up, and subsequently became went into political exile. And this was it should be connected to the ongoing COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program that many people are still unaware of, but it's a program that over 90% was directed to the Black Panther Party. And everything ranging from the forced into political exile of Assata Shakur and so many others. These are different dynamics that even though the different local law enforcement agencies, they may have been familiar with how deep and deafness of this attack on this revolutionary organization on our people, how deaf it was. But this was part of the infamous COINTEL program, the assassination of Lil Bobby Hutton.
How did you all lift up the legacy of Little Bobby Hutton yesterday in Chicago, and why is it important that we acknowledge these dates every single year?
Yes, indeed, for a number of reasons. As I pointed out earlier, there were some forces at the event yesterday, which we had on 16th Street, and we say politics a lot of times like real estate, timing, location, everything. So it was significant, even with the Black Panther Party Cubs, where we convened the event at 16th Street, west side of Chicago, right down the street from this site of the Spurgeon J. Winters Free Medical Center. This was he also was, when the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party was assassinated November 13, 1969. And we attempt to, combat this tunnel vision of the subjectivity that people a lot of times see, to really show the impact of this organization of Black people. Stood up in the words, not from the horse's mouth, but from the pig's mouth. This is said to represent the number one threat to internal security of the United States. We in particular had a number of young forces there. And just even, you could see Mike Lowry, baby, you can see different other performers and youth who perform who they use spoken word art and poetry as we say, put the Panther Cub peel in the applesauce, and just to see them young faces light up when they say, "Well, he was 17 years old," because a lot of times we are given these quote unquote conventional role models. We struggle to provide the people what we refer to as real models, people, the mass people that can relate to. You know what I'm saying? They say, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? These forces come from our conditions, our community. You know what I'm saying? They have contradictions like we have, so on and so forth. And so everything from the location we had it at to the time we had it at, you know what I'm saying? These are areas where some people may refer to as hotspots. And now we take a position wherever we at, whether we be in Africa, whether it be in Chicago, Oakland, to go right to the heart of the people. So last night was a phenomenal tribute to Legacy Lil Bobby Hutton, and also and already they are talking about mobilizing to raise funds to get to Oakland, California, this upcoming October 15th for the 60th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. So I mean, you've seen us shatter those tunnel vision viewpoints. In other words, people just a lot of times people look at situations with just my block or my set. We upped the ante last night, you know, with our work in general, to not just make that correlation to, you know what I'm saying, to from Chicago to Oakland, but throughout the world.
You brought up the continent. You were recently there and on January 24th unveiled the new Black Panther Party Cubs embassy in Ghana. What is the significance of that connection and what
Um,
is the work of the embassy? It was beautiful to watch. I was like, how I ain't know. I would have gone to
oh,
Ghana.
man. You know, I'm gonna say this.
Look at that smile. Look at that. Y'all don't
Oh,
understand. You
I'm
don't see the
still,
chairman smile often. Look at that smile.
I'm still, as what Chairman Fred would say, too proletarian, revolutionary, intoxicated to be astronomically intimidated. A lot of times people don't. In fact, I feel Marshall Toar. He comments to me a lot of times. He say, "Chairman, a lot of times we make this stuff look easy, as you say. They think it's easy, and a lot of times, you know, people don't. They don't see the different dynamics that's involved in certain moves. And a lot of moves, you know, under duress, and sometimes sad to say, our people move best under pressure. A lot of times, I was actually in Africa longer than expected. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with some contradictions, some legal contradictions, and some legal and political attacks. And but to try to this embassy that the Black Panther Party Cubs put forth in Ghana at the Beaver Tunde Center in Ghana on January 24th, 2026, this year. We are armed with a politics that transcends geographical, gender, and generational lines. To draw that correlation, I tell people that a lot of times people see situations, they think they see a reactionary where oh, it's the first time this happened. I say, no, it opened the discussion for people. It's wait a minute, the Black Panther Party had an embassy in Algeria in 1970. So to draw that correlation, and that was even done under contested conditions. You know what I'm saying? You had forces that was in political exile the time that was founded. I was dealing with I'm still dealing with a lot of legal contradictions, and I was to do that at that time period, because a lot of times it's not it's okay to say, well, this move happened then, but to put it in context. That's why I tried to with the assassination of Lil Bobby to struggle to put in context. Minister UEP New was held captive, so on and so forth. Then also to be able to touch down with present day forces. Pete and Charlotte O'Neill in Tanzania to go touch down members of the Black Panther Party who under attack, because that's one of the dynamics of incarcerating and giving us trumped up charges to drain us of resources, to take away people from the community, and also to stop us from even doing the organizing. So I feel proud. We feel proud to be again under contested conditions. In fact, when I was a political prisoner, held captive close to 9 years, I made it a point. Wait a minute. Even though I'm limited, I'm not on. Not, you know what I'm saying? I'm still, even if I'm in isolation, it's something, you know what I'm saying? We still got to organize from behind the door. So to be able to get that, implement that embassy, January 24th, 2026, and draw that correlation to 1970 Algeria is a phenomenal move. It's a statement, you know what I'm saying, to the people. And actually, last night was one of my first appearances back amongst the community here in Chicago. And it was a charge. It was a charge. It was a people's charge, a people's energy. And so again, you caught that smile again. It just
I
I really
did.
feel good about under contested conditions to be able to continue to move.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I personally have seen people in Chicago and how they love you. So I know they was happy to have you back. Chairman, this October will mark 60 years since the birth of the Black Panther Party here in Oakland, California. We are in a particular political moment that does have a calling for Black folks to show up to. I keep saying that as loudly as I can for our friends that are like this ain't about us. I'm like, woo, you misunderstanding the assignment. What do we take from the party in terms of lessons for right now, making adjustments for the different political conditions we find ourselves in?
One, I think to be clear, this there's nothing new under the sun. We relate to a philosophical tool known as dialectical materialism, where you may see similar dynamics happening. It's moving like in a spiral. Things are continuously being born as well as growing, as well as dying and disintegrating. This is a climate, an era that can be assessed as we say, Nixon on steroids. And if nothing else, people can be able to take a historical analysis to look back at that time period. What what cultivated a dynamic for the Black Panther Party? What gave birth to that? Because a lot of times I've often said I am a revolutionary in reactionary times, and it's important as a revolutionary climate, which you really can smell. Someone's coming to me yesterday. They say, "Well, you seen this image, this a video that's going viral in Iran?" With pictures of Nipsey Hussle, Dr. King, and Chairman Fred and Minister UEP Newton. And I said, a lot of times other people know black people more than black people know black people. I say you can correlate it to that era, that era of time during the late 1960s in places like Saigon and Vietnam, where a lot of the black soldiers were concentrated at, and where the propaganda bombs were, and the radio show they were saying to the soldiers, the U.S. government just assassinated Chairman Fred, just assassinated Dr. King, assassinated Defense Secretary Mark Clark, and not that worldview, because again, a lot of the system they that's a tactic to implement subjectivity. So the up the ante to be able to have a worldview to see what's going on, because again, the tentacles of imperialism, they may have different, it may go by different names in Atlanta, Chicago, the Congo, but this is a time period where the emperor has no clothes on. It's raw. So this we come up on the 60th year of the Black Panther Party. We have the as opposed to the footsteps, we have the Panther Paw steps of examples of people standing up for self-determination.
All right, Panther. Chairman, listen, I need more of that coffee we was talking about. Um, Chairman, I'm not ashamed. We ever talked about it. I don't like to be bothering you. I just lost your picture, but I know
My
you still
back.
there. So keep talking.
Hello.
No, no, no. I can hear you, but I can't see you anymore. Um,
So,
I'm gonna keep.
okay, one sec. One. All right. Okay.
There you be. All
I
right.
don't. I don't.
I don't be bothering you with stuff. You really busy, but I'm not ashamed to tell you in this moment. Yeah, I be having arguments with folks here about the legacy of the party, right? And why we have to hold true to it. I feel, and I'll say this for the 100,000 people listening this morning, or thousands of people, how many it is, I feel an accountability to
Yeah.
you, to the people, to the legacy, right? To the
Yeah.
work that we committed our lives to. So, for
Yeah.
instance, here, when politicians who are actively fighting against the people's ability to hold police accountable are centered in events uplifting the legacy of the party, I say something about it, and I'm told I'm being divisive and that everybody needs to come together. And my response is, nah, I'm being principled, that I'm accountable to tell the truth. And as you would say, Chairman, my job is to highlight the contradictions because said folks are spreading confusion, and we cannot afford to have confused people in this moment. So I'm asking you in this moment, what is the impetus for folks who want to tinker around the edges of the legacy and the lessons of the Black Panther Party? Why folks be going in that direction? And what is our responsibility to remain steadfast inside of it? And I got a follow-up question on this, and that's we got about 5 minutes
Okay.
to get to where I'm trying to go.
There's a mantra that we have the Black Panther Party Cubs. We say a lot of people be black when it's beneficial. They play Panther when it's profitable, and connect to Cubs when it's comfortable. Also, the great Marcus Garvey said, when all else fails to organize the people, the conditions will. We welcome the contradictions. You know what I'm saying? On the 35th year anniversary of the Black Panther Party in D.C., I recall a situation where this young lady was saying, oh, my mother, we're Panthers, we saw. And as soon as I told her about some assassination attempts on my life and me being a former political prisoner, she said, whoa, no, I'm not with none of this. So I would say a lot of children want pets, but they really want stuffed pets. They don't want to deal with the fleas, the cleaning up the dogs, so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people look at the leather jackets and the berets and pick them up. You know what I'm saying? The underbelly of the heat that comes with it. You know what I'm saying? And it's important. Like even with the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, a lot of people had issue with why would they talk about William O'Neill? William O'Neill was the reality.
Right.
Was the reality? And, right now, I got a court case coming up June 2nd on Harrison Case, west side of Chicago. so trumped up charges. You know what I'm saying? There was actually an assassination attempt on my life, December the 3rd, ironically, right in front of the same place Chairman Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were assassinated at. A lot of people want to say, well, let's not talk about this because different individuals involved. We say, no, we welcome. Let's heighten the contradictions. We're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. This must happen. Lakeith Stanfield, who played William O'Neill in the movie, said to me after the shooting of Judas and Black Messiah, he said, Chairman Fred, I learned a lot of things with this movie. He said, actually, he said, it's more people who are more William O'Neillists than there are those who are Chairman Fred. Fredisk. That's how he said it. I say, true that, but I always remember, a lot of them are trauma bonded. They're not a team. They're not a team. You know, it must be clear. Quality outweighs quantity. You know what I'm saying? So again, heighten the contradiction, welcome it. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people, the state, as Chairman Mao Zedong said, it's a paper tiger. It's a front. You know what I'm saying? So it's really no unity and alliance with these different forces, but we hold the line. Hold the line.
And Chairman, I know people are like, wait, what? Assassination attempt on his life. Wait, what? Outside, right? And outside of the location 2337 Chairman Fred Hampton Way, the place where your father and the defense Mark Clark were murdered. Every year you go there
Yes.
to pour libations, to pay homage to your father, to be in community. I went the first time 20 before I even knew you. I went my first time in Chicago. I had to touch because of what that means
Yes.
to us.
Yes.
I need you to help people understand what you mean it was an assassination
It
attempt
was what
on your life.
2337 West Monroe, now, I mean, actually officially known as Chairman Fred Hampton Way. After this past August 30th with the city of Chicago, Mayor Johnson, they officially acknowledges Chairman Fred Hampton Way. Everyone knows, I mean, especially on those days in particular, August 30th, his birthday, December 3rd, December 4th, December 3rd, we're there like clockwork. And many people who watch my social media, they know even I'm going through battle fatigue, whatever, because I go through the libations to connect right there. There's been enough, and everyone, you come up on these landmark, on these times, like the 60th anniversary, even I recall the 50th anniversary, it becomes, we say, okay, prepare yourselves. Here come the opportunists. Here come the agent provocateurs. Some people say more money, more problems. We say more progress, more problems. So there's been an intensified attack to hijack the legacy of the Black Panther Party. And I will be all day trying to, saying, they're a dime a dozen. They pop up, saying, like pop-up stores. This latest contradiction, though it's in the front of an individual, it's the face of it is an individual by the name of Layla Wills. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than, I don't want to make it appear like some sort of subjective dynamic, because in so many situations, whether it be the drugs in our community, the music industry, or even giving people giving us charges, it's a face that's put forward. But the deal is we have to expose the dynamics, the machinery, what's really going on here. And this December 3rd, again, 56 years after the assassination of Chairman Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, right there, literally in front of the location. I'm speaking about it because, I mean, as we speak, I have not been back to the location since then. Um, when I'm approaching right there, I was immediately, there was an attempt to have a contending event, and these mercenaries, literally trying to surround me and throw me and push me inside the gangway right there in front of the location. And it got physical, and you overheard about at least 10 individuals. And actually prior to this, I had, I intentionally walked up individuals solo, which when my security brought me up, they criticized me about, and other forces came to aid. A couple of forces came to aid, security for detail, but one individual overheard saying "smoke them." So I mean, for the layman's terms, get them,
Right.
and I literally flashed back to my mother when she talked about having December the 4th, 1969, when she told me how she remembered the faces of different, and I was just looking in the faces of different individuals. And a lot of people they say, Chairman, you always try to use everything as a political education process. They say you were calling individuals mercenaries while they were attacking you. He says, some people say, they didn't even know what they were. I said, well, a lot of times individuals don't have to be cognizant of the role they're playing, but these paid hitmen. And we had a whole political education right there, and then even some people got the video footage of the situation. Subsequently after that, unbeknownst to me, I was notified that I was some trumped up no contact. Basically saying I could not even come to the location, to this ground zero where Chairman Fred and Mark Clark were assassinated at. So it was just a trial date set of June 2nd at all places at the Harrison and Kersey Courthouse, same courthouse, ironically, that Chairman police station that Chairman Fred himself would be taken to a lot. So again, It's terrible, but it's fine because these are discussions that have to happen. And a lot of times we are forced to have these discussions. You know, the draw that a lot of people talking about, well, that's back in the 60s. You're seeing blatant correlations of some of the same discussions. You know, as I said, this is the era of Nixon on steroids. We're talking about political prisons, talking about trumped up charges, trumped up cases, assassination attempts. And the world is talking about these different dynamics. So again, it's terrible, but it's fine.
Chairman Fred Hampton, Jr., we're going to continue to follow this. We will have you back post June 2nd. This is critical that people follow this. You can also follow the updates on Chairman's social media, which I will link to the archive of the show. I appreciate you, brother. It's always so
Appreciate
good
you
to
as
see you.
well. I look forward to seeing y'all. I'm gonna pull up on y'all
Yes, sir.
soon.
All right, you better have. You
I
better
always
have.
say I just when I left the motherland in Africa, I got to come back to the motherland, Oakland, California.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
indeed.
All right, you be easy.
Love,
Be
respect,
safe.
free them all.
Love
You as
you.
well.
Okay,
Right, I love you more.
All right. That was Chairman Fred Hampton, Jr., Chicago-based community organizer, activist, the president and chairman of the Prisoners of Conscience Committee and Black Panther Party Cubs. He is the son of Black Panther Party leader, Chairman Fred Hampton. I got, man, just a couple of minutes, but I had to get this in. My homie, my brother, George Galvez, executive director, co-founder of Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice. They doing that art thing, that art and politics thing tonight. Brother George, come on in and tell the people what's happening down at the center tonight. Don't forget to get an address, the times, all that.
My sister from another mistress, thank you so much for letting me jump on, get a quick plug in. We are hosting the first annual Dream Beyond Bars Film Festival, all content produced in-house. We have some of our formerly incarcerated young leaders, emerging storytellers, previewing their digital stories. We also partnered with Offside Productions, local shop out here. Folks might know Josh Healy and some of the folks he's collaborated with, like Rosario Dawson and Boots Riley. And we did a whole series, 3 videos, political education skits called Laughter for Liberation. And then we got 3 documents. As a matter of fact, Kat, you in some of these documentaries we doing with some of the actions, because that's how me and you get down. So, and you always bring that fire. So, we had to have a clip of you up in there. So,
right.
Any case, yeah, we got these 3 videos. So the first one we're doing is going to be the No One is Illegal on Stolen Land. It was an action that we did Mexican Independence Day after the Trump administration had threatened to come and do ICE raids on Mexican Independence Day during celebrations. They've also said that they were going to repurpose the federal women's prison in Dublin that was closed to become an ICE detention center. So we brought the heat to them. We went straight up to their doorstep on that day, and we had an action of joyful resistance. We also had an event in November with Angela Davis and Leonard Peltier, 2 of our iconic, freedom fighters and iconic, former political prisoners, and they got to be in conversation with the people in our community, including some of our young leaders. So it was an intergenerational, conversation about the importance of Black and Indigenous solidarity. And then lastly, the event we did in solidarity with Minnesota Makoche, our relatives in Minnesota when they were under siege, and continue to be under siege, to be quite frank. And it really turned into an ICE at a Home Depot, ICE at a Target event too. So, you were there, I think, at all of those events, Kat, but we got you featured speaking, and we got a bunch of our relatives, and it's going to be fire. So we invite people to come join us at the New Parkway Theater tonight, 5 p.m. Doors open. Screening starts sharply at 6 p.m. The New Parkway Theater, 474 24th Street, Oakland, 94612.
We'll put it in the archives of the show. I'll repost on my channels. Thank you, George Galvez, Executive Director of Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice. That's it for today, fam bam. Longest Order airs Monday through Thursdays at 8 a.m. Big thanks to the squad, Teresa Wisbianska and Deanna Martinez, producers, engineers, Kirsten Thomas, hostess me, Pat Brooks. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. Democracy Now! Is up at 9 o'clock. You're listening to KPFA 94.1 FM in Berkeley, KPFA 89.3 FM in Berkeley, KFCF 88.1 FM in Fresno, streaming online around the world at kpfa.org.